Javier Vega. He is one half of the Fourth and Gold podcast / YouTube channel. Someone who I kind of laid my eyes on back in the early part of, I'd say, last year before I started going live. So he's definitely one of the OGs, like Chapman, Grant Cohn, those kind of guys. And I wanted to have him on my channel, kind of pick his brain about, some 49er topics. So Javier, I'm going to let you, or Javi, I don't know how you like to be, what to be called. I'll let you introduce yourself and let people know about you, and then we'll get into this thing.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Aaron. Everyone knows me as Javi from the Fourth and Goal podcast. This is our third full season running the pod. We just recently started up the website, 49ersgoldmine.com. Check that out if you can. Shout out to my guys, Leo, Jason, Andrew, David, Luke, Hugh, all the guys who help me run that, Steph and Angie, everyone that's part of the group who make that thing go on a daily basis. Just trying to make it out here in this very competitive 49ers content creation. I think I've paved my way. But there's still more, there's room to grow. And of course, ultimately get those credentials, get into some press boxes, get into some training camp practices. It's kind of the end game for me when it comes to stuff. But yeah, man, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Trying to think where I could start here. So I've asked every guest that I've had on, and some of the people that are probably going to click on here and be like, oh, he's asking this again. But I have asked everyone if they could grade the 49ers offseason with draft, free agency. As far as for us with free agency with the 49ers, a lot of it was re-signing our own guys. Mm-hmm. If you had to give a letter grade or a scale of 1 to 10, how would you kind of rate what the Niners have done this offseason?
Offseason grade, I think in totality thus far, I'd give them a B. Because to me, I think they still need to add an edge rusher. I think they're still looking for that tight end too. Basically, you saw those guys come in to visit, Delaney Walker. Mm-hmm. They just signed the guy kid off the Titans. So they're looking for something. I think the Niners executed as well as they could given the circumstances with the lower cap, being up against it. The biggest thing had to be Trent Williams. You signed Trent Williams. Without him, you're not a Super Bowl contender, right? So you bring him back on the deal that you gave him, as petty as he is, by getting that extra $100,000 to be the highest paid left tackle over Bakhtiari. You bring in Alex Mack, a leader, a veteran, someone who knows this offense very well. I think he's going to be a very huge part of this offense this year. Weston Richburg just retired, so we all know how vital the center is for this team and how vital Alex Mack could be to Jimmy Garoppolo's development, no matter how long he's the starter, and even Trey Lance's development whenever that time comes for Trey Lance to take over. I thought they did really well at the draft. I thought they had a vision. They stuck to it. You take Aaron Banks, you take Trey Sermon, you're looking to be a little more physical, I could imagine. Maybe you're looking to run the ball more with a rookie quarterback as your starter. Maybe the Niners do have something lined up to trade Jimmy Garoppolo, right? We don't know. But even still, you're looking probably to protect Jimmy as well by running the ball a little bit more, having a guy like Aaron Banks next to Mack and Lakin, who should also see some improvements. In a lot, solidifying that interior offensive line has been a big part of it. You bring back Jason Verrett, huge part of the defense. I expect D'Amico Ryans to kind of go to more man coverage. So you go and get an Ambry Thomas. You bring back Jason Verrett. You bring back K'Wan Williams on one-year deals. And then Lenore out of Oregon, he could potentially be a guy who might replace K'Wan Williams. So I think the Niners, they did exactly what they set out to do. I think if they could do it over again, they may take a wide receiver in this draft, right? But from Definitely. All in all, I think they executed the plan. I think they've got exactly what they needed. I know, based on some of their signings they've done in the last couple of weeks, they're looking for something. They're trying to find it in this free agency pool. It is June 2nd today, so we'll probably see some post June 1 cuts coming up soon. And who knows who may become available, right? What do the Eagles do with Zach Ertz? That's a name that keeps getting floated around. I wouldn't mind bringing him in if he's cut. What do the Jets do with Jamison Crowder? I wouldn't mind bringing him in if he's cut in the wide receiver room. There could be an edge rusher that's later on that is available for them. But I don't think they're satisfied with an Arden Key, as a guy who comes off the bench for them, right? I think they're looking for something else there too. Um, but all in all, a B. You were aggressive enough to get your quarterback. You showed some gall and said, you know what, screw it.
Definitely.
We're gonna potentially rip the Band-Aid off of Jimmy Garoppolo and go get a guy who we think has more upside. And you have Trey Lance there. You try to you fixed what a lot of fans were clamoring about. Get some guard help. On our show, we've always talked about Kyle Shanahan doesn't value guards. Well, he took a guard in the second round, and he took a guard who is a lot larger than what people are used to in his
Right.
offense, but he moves well enough to where it makes sense to put him there. You take another guard, Jalen Moore, later in the draft. What do the Niners do next year? Like, I'm sorry, I'm rambling now, but there's a lot of
That's right.
one-year contracts. There's a lot of guys who are coming up next year. Laken Tomlinson hasn't been extended yet. Are they going to move Banks to the left guard, and maybe more at right guard? Or are they looking to extend Laken, or are they looking to the next draft for another guard? Like, what are we doing? Like, there's a lot of moving parts here. With the cornerback position, if Jason Verrett has another solid year, is he back? Right? What are you going to do? This is kind of what makes it hard about the Julio Jones conversation, which I think we'll get into. But I think the Niners are preparing for somewhat of an exodus next year with the way they drafted 2 corners, a safety, 2 running backs, 2 guards. I think they know whether they're going to lack depth next year, and they got it this year in the draft. So I think all in all, I gave them a B.
Sorry, that was kind of my grade. No, that's fine. That was kind of the grade that I gave them myself post draft. Just considering what my expectations were during the draft and what they actually did. I wish they would have gone after another receiver, edge rusher type thing. But you only have so many picks and you only have so much money this year. The cap is going up, so I'm happy about that. That hopefully means Fred Warner is going to get a contract extension soon. And now I think Richburg's money comes off the books next year. Next offseason,
like $9.5 million, something like that. Yeah.
So, and I saw something today. I have to get into this. One of the first things I got to get into is on my channel, I always have harped on injuries and how much they're a pain and how they cost the Niners so much, especially last year. And I see the OTA,
the list.
credence to what Grant is saying. And I find that already we have so many guys missing in OTAs, and it's just, I don't know. To me, it's a bad omen. I'm trying to gather my thoughts of what I wanted to say. But yeah, seeing that injury list already in OTAs definitely got me a little bit worried.
I mean, most of the stuff from what, from the way it was listed, most of it was mild, right? And I mean, you got to think. To me, I look at it as like these guys are getting back into football shape. I think Kyle says it best: you can't practice football without actually playing football. So they've had OTAs and stuff like the last couple of days. The one that really didn't concern me too much is Tart's dealing with a turf toe. He had surgery in the offseason, kind of expected. Jalen Hurd, he's coming off an ACL tear, kind of expected. The one that kind of worried me a little bit was Raheem Mostert. Is he still dealing with an MCL sprain? He's a speed guy, and a lot of times when you have speed guys like that, they refer to them as the Lamborghini. It's always gonna be in the shop, right? Like that's just how it goes. Those fast guys, something always breaks or kind of gets tweaked. With Ayuk, not too worried. Groin injury. He played 15 games last year. I think he'll be just fine. The rest of the list, to be honest, those guys are going to be depth pieces anyways, right? Those guys aren't guys who you want to see all regularly, right? If the Niners are if this list had Fred Warner on it, Javon Kinlaw on it, Alex Mack and Trent Williams on it, then I'd be really concerned. But most of the other guys were guys who are reserves and special teamers. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to
Right.
diminish their worth to this team, but when it's
Right.
all said and done, the Niners have about 22, 25 guys that really, really, really matter. And I want to, 3 of those, like 9 or 10 that were on that list were the guys who were actually like, hey, they're very important to this team. They need to be healthy and active. But I'm not too concerned about it. Knock on wood, nothing crazy happens in the next couple of days of practices. I think this team will be just fine. Last year they didn't have OTAs. Um, didn't really have much of anything. So, we would have seen this stuff too last year, leading into the season. Because, even going into 2019, if anyone remembers, Nick Bosa didn't practice all training camp, essentially. He had a bunch of injuries.
Right.
D Ford had a back issue in training camp. I want to say Debo had a hamstring issue. We all know Jalen Hurd didn't finish training camp. Kittle had a little tweak in his knee. These things are going to happen, little bumps and bruises throughout the process.
Yeah, I apologize for ranting or going on. Just my connection's been acting a little goofy, so I'm like paying attention to it and then trying to talk at the same time. So I apologize. Trying to think, there's been a lot of news lately about the third wide receiver position, and of course, there's the Julio Jones mumbo jumbo that I just don't believe that's going to happen. I want it to happen, but realistically, I don't see it happening. Um, what's your most likely scenario of the third wide receiver position? And like you mentioned before, what would be an alternative move to say a Julio Jones signing for the number 3 position? Like if you had to do within the roster or a realistic free agent option, how would you go about that?
I mean, within the roster, you got to think it's Jalen Hurd, right? You want to get something out of your 67th pick
Right.
overall. This is year 3 now. Like you got to, you know, just you have to get something out of him, whether that is 35 catches for 400 yards or 60 catches for 800 yards, right? Like you have to get something from him, and you got to see what you have in him. I think if the Niners make a trade, barring the Julio thing, they'd probably do something mid-season. What do the Giants do with Sterling Shepard? What do the Vikings do with Adam Thielen? There's some contracts that can be moved. I'm not saying the Niners are in on any of those things. It's just me looking at the way that the landscape of the NFL is going. Maybe those teams would look to move somebody around. Free agent wise, if Jamison Crowder became available, I'd be all over that. I would be
Right. You mentioned that.
all
Yep.
over that. But with the Julio thing, a lot of this to me feels like the Mac Jones thing, right? Like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
it's automatically going to be tied to Kyle Shanahan because Kyle's worked with him in the past, right? Like, not everything that Kyle's done in the past should automatically be tied to him. However, Julio Jones, I can understand the idea and the thought process behind it. But at the end of the day, the Falcons, the report is that they've received offers with a first round pick. Excuse my language, that's bullshit. Because if he did, you
Mm-hmm.
would have sent them off by now. Um, it just doesn't make sense for the Falcons to say that and then not do it, right? You would have had that postmark like a check. Like, yeah, go ahead. We'll execute this trade on June 2nd to Team X because they gave us a first round pick. Like that would have been announced already. Whereas I think the Falcons are getting lowballed here, right? And I think they don't want to get embarrassed because Mohamed Sanu was traded from the Falcons for like a second and a fifth. If the Falcons get less than that for Julio Jones, that's just a bad look. The optics of it look really, really bad. It's just an interesting dynamic throughout this whole process. Like, yeah, we traded Mohamed Sanu 2 years ago away for this two and a 5, and we're gonna send Julio off for like a 2 and maybe something else. Like, it just doesn't add up for the Falcons. I think the league knows the Falcons are desperate for cap space, right? And Julio's going to get traded regardless. So I think teams are just waiting this out. They're like just waiting in line to see what happens. If someone has to send something a little bit extra, they will. But if you don't have to, you shouldn't. If the Niners are in, awesome. But my concern would be if the Niners are in, like I said on my show, um, you get Julio, right? You send a second for him, and you send another pick, mid-round pick for him. The Niners have contracts that are expiring, like we talked about a couple minutes ago. This is how you replenish your roster. You just spent 2 first-round
Right.
picks and a third to get Trey Lance. Now, you're kind of working backwards here. Then you're going to go
Right.
send a 2 and another whatever for a wide receiver who's going to be on a 3-year deal. You have him for 3 years, but then you have to recoup some of that stuff. And you got not even adding in the Jimmy Garoppolo situation. Are you going to keep that contract plus Julio's contract? Are you going to get anything back for Jimmy Garoppolo if you trade him off? Like, there's just a lot of moving parts here, to where, yes, Julio Jones makes a ton of sense for the 49ers, but at what cost? Like, there's a cost benefit analysis that needs to be done here, because are you going to extend Deebo Samuel in 2022? Like, I don't know, right? What happens with Jalen Hurd? You're gonna have to replace him. Brandon Ayuk will be up for the deal. You're still looking, even after you
Right.
get Julio Jones, you're still looking for another wide receiver because you missed on other wide receivers. Like, you missed on Trent Taylor, you missed on Dante Pettis. Obviously, you missed on Jalen Hurd. That's 3 out of those. How many picks you used to go do that? I think I wrote out the list. It was like 8 or 9 picks to select 4 guys, and only 2 have panned out. And Deebo had a really great rookie year, but he missed most of the year. Ayuk had a really great rookie year. So you only got 2 guys that are worth anything out of all the picks you used, not to mention the Emmanuel Sanders trade. So you're still
Yeah.
looking for a wide receiver. Like, they're still trying to, it's compounding so much with the way the wide receiver room is shaped out. Now, great. The 2 guys they did hit on, Ayuk is going to be a stud. Deebo, when healthy, is a dangerous player for this offense. But
Right.
health has been the biggest thing with Deebo, so you have to make sure he's there. So it's just a cost benefit thing with Julio. Yeah, he'd be great. If you go get Julio, you're signaling now, hey, we're all in on this year, 2021. We have to make it happen, and we'll see what else happens after that in 2022. Because, I don't think the Niners want to go into the 2022 draft with 4 picks, 5 picks, when you have to replace
Right.
potentially 10, 11, 12 guys, right? You don't want to do that. And next year's draft should be a little bit more back to normal, your normal eval process, full college football season nationally, and you have a little bit more of a opportunity to get the guys that you want. This undrafted free agent pool this past draft was loaded because guys weren't properly evaled, weren't able to get eval. There's a lot of guys who were sneaky talented who just didn't get drafted. Like Marvin Wilson out of Florida State was undrafted. Like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Those type of guys. So it's just an interesting dynamic how the Niners have to operate through all this. So the wide receiver room, I think it's compounded so much that they're kind of forced themselves in this position. I think the biggest thing is, like, when you miss on Dante Pettis, that hurts because you traded up to get him. You took him in the second round. That hurt quite a bit.
I guess I saw a tweet to go on like a different idea. It said that look at the Rams and I'm trying to think of the other team. It said, look at the Rams and look at Seattle. Look at these teams that make these blockbuster moves, and they're in the playoffs every year. And the Niners, play it safe, and they've missed. They've only had one good winning season in the 4, I think, that Kyle and John have been here. So is always holding on to your draft picks the best course of action? I agree. You build through the draft. My nephew's a pretty young Niners fan. He agrees that you build through the draft as well. So there is the mindset that these other teams are making these splashes and get into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't the Niners? I don't want the Niners to ever have the mindset that they just blow picks and give away picks for aging veterans and stuff like that. I rather than build through the draft. I guess my fear was because I saw Seattle was attached to it, and I hate the Seahawks, as most Niners fans do. And come on now, if he's got to go anywhere, I hope he goes to the AFC like the Titans or something.
Yeah.
I like their situation. But yeah, he's aging. My brother made a good point. He's like, you can't give up a ton of assets for an aging receiver that might have 2 or 3 good years left, maybe 2.
Yeah.
Who was injured last year. So I guess the name value is what I guess myself gets excited and other fans, but when you actually like break it down and think about it, like what are you actually getting and how much are you going to give up? Like you said, Niners have a lot of upcoming contracts. They're probably going to lose some guys next year. Hopefully, with the cap going up, they can keep a couple of them. The biggest one is Fred Warner. Fred Warner is a must resign. Like there's no,
Yeah.
there is no, there's nothing anybody could tell me to change my mind on that one. He is an elite middle linebacker. He is the leader of that defense for sure. Like he's my favorite player on the 49ers. He's always there. He's always healthy. He's always making an impact. And he cares. Like some guys don't care. Like some people are professional athletes. They care about more about that money. This dude cares. He wants to win. He made that statement about like the Niners. This is the last losing season they're going to have or something. I forgot where I saw that.
Yeah.
Right.
I saw that. Yeah.
I hope so too. I'll believe it when it happens, but yeah. So yeah, I just don't see it happening. I hope they can work it out on their own team. Like I said, I listened to some Cohn stuff. He said with Juwan Jennings looking kind of decent. He actually said Mohamed Sanu was looking good in OTAs. But then again, there's no pads on. So it's hard to make any assessment off of like OTA practices until the pads go on and, you get to really see what guys are really made of. But yeah, I think that's just not going to happen. And we all just need to get over it and move on.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Niners pulled it off. They do some pretty big trades. You got the Trent Williams trade. You got the Emmanuel Sanders trade in the middle of the season. And of course, they got really aggressive this offseason with Trey Lance. So they will trade at the right price, right? They will make sure the price is fair on their end and also somewhat fair on the other side. When it comes to Fred Warner, I'm not worried about Fred. We talked about that on my show last night. My thing with Fred is how much is he going to get a year? Because if Bobby Wagner's getting 18 a year, and we can still think Bobby Wagner's a top 3 linebacker, you got to think Fred's going to be looking at 19 and a half at the very least, right? And I think most recently, it's crazy, right? Most recently, I want to say it was Jalen Smith from the Cowboys. He got like $43 million guaranteed. You got to think Fred's going to get 50, 55, right? Those numbers are going to be pretty high for a guy like Fred Warner. And I think the Niners should get this done sooner than later.
Yes, don't be the last.
Yeah, don't be last because Darius Leonard will get paid, and then Fred's going to want to top that. And then, of course, if Fred has another All-Pro season, price goes up, right? You're looking at a higher price, and then you have Fred competing with Edmonds of Buffalo and Roquan Smith of Chicago when it comes to contract negotiations, where those guys may end up, right? So you're looking at 2 first-round picks versus the guy who's taken in the third. But I think it's very fair to say, this is not even a homer take. I think Fred is probably the best inside linebacker in football. I don't think it's up for discussion or debate. I think if you want to have the conversation, it would probably be, it's going to be Fred and Bobby. Those are the top 2. And then everyone else kind of slides in where they, you kind of get in where you fit in after that. And then, when it comes back to the Julio thing, yeah, I would love for it to happen. But at the same time, I'm of the mindset like, look, just save the assets if you can. Wait it out a little bit on the June 1st cuts. If a Jamison Crowder becomes available, do it. Where are the Giants at middle of the season? Do they want to offload Sterling Shepard's contract? That's kind of the dream situation for me. Like if I could get Sterling Shepard in this 49er offense, I think that'd be ideal. He's a great route runner. He does everything you need out of the backfield as well. He's very gadgety in that way. Can play the slot, can play the X, can play the Y. Makes Debo, Ayuk, kind of interchangeable as well. I think the Niners have their slot receiver on the roster, and that's Debo Samuel. They just need to find a guy who can give them what KB gave them: 45 catches, third down conversions, and a red zone target. So if Jalen Hurd can be that, great. If he can't, then you're looking to this free agency market where, whoever might become available, you might want to take a look at those guys. But the Niners are definitely looking for something, and I think they will find it before the season starts.
I know. I think one position that a lot of people are, at least I personally think that the Niners, if they were to ever think of a June, I don't know if there's any corners out there post June 1st cut that would be worth picking up, but man, with the Verrett injury history, like the Niners are one corner away from having to play some rookies. And, I love Emmanuel Mosley, but he's limited.
Yep.
Sometimes like all the talk is about this, wide receiver, this and that. But like, man, if there was a good corner that could somehow trickle on, that will get cut, that'd be a position that I would definitely think about addressing. Just like I think like tight end, like you said, I would love for Zach Ertz to play across from George Kittle.
Yeah.
Now it's probably pie in the sky, and it's again, us Niners fans, we want to we shoot for the stars, man. Like we want good players. Like that's why when I saw the signing of that guy today, I'm trying to think of his name. It's down here on my list of questions. I was going to ask you about him, McCoyle Pruitt. Like I don't have any knowledge of this guy. I don't know who he is. Like I think I pay attention to the NFL pretty well. I looked at some of his stats. He's not a big catch. He's more of a run blocker. A blocking. Yeah. And I'm just, it does not excite me.
Yeah, no, and I think part of it is though, you're looking for guys who can contribute, right? You want a guy who can kind of help Kittle out with the run blocking duties, right? You want to have, if you need to send, instead of having Kittle run block as much as he does or pass protect as much as he does, you send Kittle out in the route tree, right? And you have a tight end that you can trust in the pass blocking game. So that's kind of what you're looking for. And I think that's kind of what Kyle might be looking for, but also Kyle might be looking for a guy who gives them a little more in the passing game. That's kind of why I wanted them to keep Caden Smith. He ended up going to the Giants, had himself a pretty good year. But I get why, you were hoping he'd slid onto the practice squad, things like that. There's a corner out, Marcus Lattimore might be a guy who becomes available, but his contract might be super huge in a year or two for a corner. And I pardon me, like I really like Ambry Thomas. I think he has a shot to compete for cornerback too. Emmanuel Mosley wasn't playing the last couple weeks of the season, not because he was injured, but they just rather had him on special teams. That's kind of why I thought they would bring Akella Witherspoon back. And Akella was playing like a top 5 corner in those last 3-4 weeks. He was solid. I was talking to his dad a couple weeks ago, and his dad was like, yeah, he's playing really well. And there's, whatever the issues were with the coaching staff and Akella, those, whatever that is, that's what it is at this point. But I would have definitely kept Akella Witherspoon on this roster. It's just, again, something else. They missed on that. You missed on that corner. You really haven't drafted since then. Richard Sherman was here for a while. I get why you didn't look into that position as much as you did. But you're going to have to look to replace a lot of this stuff. So that's why there should be some money next year to shop in free agency if you're not going to keep Jimmy Garoppolo's contract on the books. And of course, the Weston Richburg retirement saves them some money. They'll be
plus
okay.
The cap's going up too a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. The cap should be going up. I want to say it's 208. 208 was the number.
That's what I saw.
That's it's an additional 10 to $12 million. And I think that's the floor. That's not the set number. So it could definitely go up. And it should go up. Shit, I just paid $1,500 for 4 tickets to Chicago. Like the cap better go up. You know what I mean? So it's just an interesting dynamic. This team has a lot of question marks. I'm not super Homer-y. You know what I mean? I don't know if this team's a Super Bowl team. I think this team is right. I think this team is a maybe division title, wild card round, maybe a divisional round type of football team. Because this is not 2019 again. You don't have the Sherman that you had. You don't have the healthy D Ford like you had. You don't have DeForest Buckner. You don't have those type of things. So it's a different squad, and I think we should treat it as such. You know what I mean?
You remind me of me and my nephew. We're very cynical Niner fans. We're not negative. I am
now.
I'm very realistic. Like a lot of people, they're like, I remember one year that, they were picking the schedule and they had us not losing anything. And, some people need to step away from being a fan of the team and actually look at the team realistically as a whole and look at the actual question marks that you have on this team. What's the number one question mark? Health. Every year. And it hasn't just been during the Shanahan, John Lynch era. It's been going on for a long time. Like they're snake bitten somehow. A lot of what the Niners are going to accomplish this year is all going to be based on if they can stay healthy. If they can stay
Mhm.
healthy, and Trey Lance, I'm going to say Trey Lance it hits. Say maybe he plays a little bit this year, and you find out that he's the real deal. Then we got something here. We're cooking with gas, But
Mhm.
I'm very much of the wait and see mindset. I think the Niners have a pretty decent roster, but
Yeah.
there's questions, like you said. I think cornerback's a question. I think wide receiver's a question. I'm trying to think of what other position.
I mean, after Dre Greenlaw, what do you got?
Right, middle linebacker. You could use some depth too. Yeah, that's true. I mean,
Right? And
Aziz
then what
Al-Shaair is
happens?
nice, but
God forbid anything happens to Tart again. You're still limited sort of strong safety. So yeah, there's holes, there's question marks, and I think that's a good way to be about it. You should be realistic, right? I get it. We're all the fans. We want to be super, positive. I'm pretty cynical now. I used to be that fan. Oh yeah, we're gonna win 13 games, but doing the podcasting thing and kind of changing my opinion on a lot of things and really, really deep diving into the team and the roster. Last year with all the injuries, they were still in a lot of those games, right?
they
If you
were.
had if you had competent quarterback play,
Yep,
that's a 10-win team, right? If you just had Andy Dalton in there for those 4 games, the Niners probably win those 4 games. If Jimmy Garoppolo plays those games, they probably win those games because Jimmy, for all the warts he does have, he's not as turnover prone as Mullins was, right? He wasn't throwing pick sixes, he wasn't fumble sixes, he wasn't doing all the dumb stuff Mullins was doing. And I'm not one of those fans who bought into the offensive line was a huge issue. When you have a quarterback who can't read or process fast enough, you're gonna get smoked back there, we all watched Nick Mullins throw the ball. He doesn't throw with any type of velocity. It takes a long time for the ball to get there. So, of course, you're going to have a lot of picks. You're going to have a lot of batted balls. You're going to have a lot of guys coming back to the ball when they shouldn't have to come back to the ball, kind of gets rid of the yak and all that other stuff. So, health is the biggest issue. And then, of course, once you get past the health, the depth on certain spots. You brought up wide receiver, corner, safety, inside linebacker. I think they're fine on the defensive line. I think offensive line, they're fine. Quarterback, you're obviously fine because you have Jimmy Garoppolo and you just drafted the kid 3rd overall, so you should be absolutely fine. And then running back room, you should be fine there as far as depth goes. So they should be okay. I think this team should win 11 games. Like this team, as constructed today, should win 11 games.
I would be okay with that. I feel like Tampa's kind of the cream of the crop, and then there's just like a whole mess of teams kind of like right underneath.
Mm-hmm.
The AFC is way more competitive. Like they're just a better conference, I guess. I mean, you got Kansas City, you got the Titans. Trying to think.
Ravens, Steelers, Browns.
Yeah, I mean, it's the NFC is very it's top heavy, and then I think the Niners have a chance, and I feel like my whole thing is we always play our division foes tough. Like I did a schedule like a schedule like what I thought the Niners record would be. And I'm always like 50-50 on divisional games because for some reason we just play these guys close. Yeah, we own the Rams the last couple of years, but they don't have Jared Goff anymore.
Completely different.
He's a completely different quarterback. He's actually competent. He doesn't need his handheld. He's extremely talented. The Cardinals are intriguing because they got all these players, but a lot of these players they got are like really old and like kind of worn down and kind of at the end. But at the same time, I think Kyler Murray is super talented and he irritates me to no end how he can escape his escapability. Oh man, those kind of quarterbacks just gets me. Him and Russell Wilson. And of course, Russell Wilson, he's everything. He is the Seahawks. Without him, they're like a 4-win team. Like,
yeah,
he's so damn good. I hate him, but he's so damn good. There's certain players like Mahomes. I hated that we lost to the Chiefs, man, but you got to give dudes his props. Like some guys are just God. They got boatloads of talent. Like God bless them 100 times over. Like, and that's just how it is. But yeah, it'll be interesting this year. I think the Niners have a shot But yeah, maybe like a one playoff win, maybe, and then a divisional loss or something. I can see. I always keep my expectations a lot lower
Yeah,
so
same.
that I'm not disappointed. I still get pissed off like
Of course.
completely.
Of course,
I
you
still
should.
rage out when I watch games. I usually watch them by myself,
Same.
because I'm a psycho. I've gotten better though. I don't break stuff anymore. I used to break stuff. That's stupid. But I'm 41 years old now. Eventually, you got to grow up, right? But
Yeah.
one thing that I found intriguing today was I heard Grant talking about freaking Trey Lance looking really good, and it kind of goes into my next question about how you would go about dealing with Lance as far as playing time. Would you use him as more of a gadgety player, or would you actually put him in like I talked to? Was it I forget it was John Chapman or Brian Peacock? Don't use him as a gadgety player. Like make him like put him in for series. Like
Yeah.
actually make him play quarterback, not a jet sweep and use him as a
Yeah.
running back. I don't want to use him as a running back. That's not. I want him as a quarterback. You know what I mean? I want to see what he can do.
Yeah.
How would you use that clay? How would you shape that clay if you were in charge of that?
If I were in charge, I honestly I'd throw him right in. And
You think so?
it's a soft landing to start the season. Detroit, Philadelphia, the first 2 games. You know, I would just throw him in. Like if the Niners are in this training camp, right, and it's close. Like if it's Jimmy and Lance, they're neck and neck going into week 1. I would give the benefit of the doubt to Lance because he gives you more. Because he gives you the mobility, he gives you the footwork, he gives you the deep ball. He gives you a lot more to work with and mold, and you can slowly bring him up. What I don't want to do is give him coming out of the bye week, right? Let's just say the Niners are 2-3 coming out of the bye week, right? They go into the bye week 2-3, and then the fan base is calling for a switch. Kyle's kind of hinting at it. You really want to throw Trey Lance in there against DeForest Buckner and the Colts on primetime? No, you don't, right? If this training camp battle is close, if it's a tie, the tie has got to go to the rookie because you've invested all of this into the rookie, right? Now, does that tank Jimmy's value? Maybe. But we all know how the NFL works. There's a lot of guys who get banged up. Now, I'm not opposed to playing Jimmy Garoppolo if it's close either. But
Mhm.
if you already know who your future is, right? You've invested all this in this guy. You might as well just do it. If it's close, if Kyle feels it's close, just rip off the Band-Aid. Trey, team's yours. Let's go. Like, let's just run with it. Because I think you're looking at a guy who's going to be, that's what you're hoping for. You spent all that draft capital to get him. Now, if Jimmy's ahead of him in training camp, then of course you go with Jimmy. But if Jimmy plays poorly to start the season, and the first time you get to see Trey Lance is against the Colts, and he struggles, that's a really hard way. That's a really tough way to kill a kid's confidence right out the bat. Like, you got to go face DeForest Buckner, Darius Leonard, and then, oh, by the way, the other North Dakota State quarterback is on the other team too. So you're going to be compared to that guy. So all these other narratives kind of build up on that. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. Like, if the Niners were to get a really great trade for Jimmy Garoppolo right now, I think they'd take it. I really believe they would take it. Like, someone comes knocking, hey, we'll give you next year's second. I think Kyle Shanahan packs his bags for him and says, all right, thanks.
You have to do it.
Yeah. Right.
You have
so
to.
I think this, my thing is my biggest belief is if Kyle Shanahan can get production and wins out of Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard, why can't he
Right.
get it out of the 3rd overall pick that he traded up for, who has uber talent? And we've all heard throughout the draft process was the smartest guy in the draft. He did this, he did that. Why wouldn't we expect him to win games, right? This is a good roster. And if you're building the roster the way we just talked about at the beginning of the show, you took 2 guards, you took 2 running backs, you're expecting to run the ball a little bit more, you can protect him, right? In that way. Like, we all watched the Arizona game with CJ Beathard this past year, right? They won that game without throwing the ball down the field. I want to say every pass was 6 yards or less, except for the one to Kittle down the field. And they won that game pretty handedly, right? What makes me think Kyle couldn't do that for Trey Lance, who gives them much more as a passer, much more as a runner? if the Niners get a second round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo, that's basically getting 1-for-1 for what you got for him 4 years ago, because you sent the second round pick for him anyways. So I would do it if that opportunity arose. I would take it. I would start the rookie.
I tell people, if Jimmy Garoppolo and all these other quarterbacks had their hand held and were somewhat successful with not a lot of talent behind them, because I mean, CJ Beathard to me didn't really have a lot of talent. Nick Mullins, same. Jimmy has some traits that I like, arm angles. He's got a quick release, all that kind of stuff. But I'm talking about a guy who's got talent oozing out of his ears, you know what I mean? And like, you can't construct an offense with a certain amount of plays and make a guy, successful. I mean, you did it with Jimmy when he came in on that last 5 games where, what did you give him? Like a quarter of the playbook of how little of the play, and he was decently successful. And you can't get that same success out of a guy who's way more talented and has so much upside and elite skills. I feel like the Niners, I feel like Kyle, if there's one coach that could get it out of a player, it's Kyle Shanahan. So yeah.
And the thing is, like, it's people talk about, well, Trey hasn't played in this long and that long. There's the difference between days played, the difference between the last live football snaps guys of these two, Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance, have taken. The days between them is 29 days. That is a gap.
I've seen that somewhere.
Right? That is a gap. I went back and looked at it. It was like October 3rd was for Trey Lance, and like November 2nd was for Jimmy Garoppolo. It was like their last like live game reps. So, 29 days have been the difference, when it comes to that. So they're both kind of starting over in that sense. Now, granted, Jimmy Garoppolo is a professional football player. He's been in the league a while, so he knows and seen a lot more. And my thing is, like, why would you want him to sit another year?
Right.
The way for him to learn is to get the reps. Now, everyone kind of wants to compare it to the Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes situation. Alex Smith didn't miss any games in Kansas City. Like, they were a playoff team. Andy Reid knew, like, listen, Alex Smith was going to get us to the divisional round, and that's it, right? That is, and that's why they ripped the Band-Aid off. So, like, let's go get this other kid who's pretty talented. Let's ride with Alex because we know we can get there with Alex. The Niners don't know if Jimmy Garoppolo can make it out of September, right? And it's not. Exactly. I'm not trying to be funny, but 2 out of the 3 years he's been here, he's been hurt in September. Week 3 in Kansas City, I was there when he tore his ACL. Not his fault. Trying to make a play, trying to come back in the game. 2019, we know it's a Super Bowl year. Last year, week 2, he's hurt. Right? He hasn't made it out of September 2 out of the 3 years. So you had to go do this, right? And if
you had to,
if Trey's ready, you throw him in. To me, you just do it. You rip the Band-Aid off and you do it. You've already signaled to the rest of the league, like, listen, Jimmy's not our guy long term. We've invested all this stuff in him. We're going to throw him out there. And, teams should be worried about what Kyle can draw up with a guy like Lance. I think he has a little bit of an accuracy issue, but a lot of that has to do with footwork. That stuff can get cleaned up because he's changed quite a bit of his throwing mechanics in over a year. So he works at it. North Dakota State, I had one of their beat writers on my podcast. He explained to me that North Dakota State does similar stuff to the 49ers as far as their schemes, their route trees, just the way their playbook is designed, and then the stuff in the huddle. It's really long plays. He's got to call from a huddle. He's got to get to the line, make the checks. So he's familiar with those things. So Kyle, that was something that was lost in my evaluation process. Like, I didn't realize Kyle would value that so much, right? The calling plays in the huddle, the pre-snap reads before, at the line of scrimmage, checking protections, those things mattered. And then, of course, the ability to turn his back to a defense and kind of rescan the field. So, anyone who watches football, the quarterback is scanning the field pre-snap, snaps the ball with a play action. He's turning his back to the defense and then has to reset the image when he turns back around. And he did that very, very well. A lot of the accuracy stuff is balls are high. They're going to be high. They might sail on him, and that's footwork. And a lot of that stuff's been cleaned up. Was talking with somebody who was there at OTAs today. He said, let's see here. One second, let me pull it up. because I didn't get to go. Hopefully soon I'll be out there. But I asked him how did Trey look. He said when you're a big guy and a big arm, you're gonna look sweet at OTAs. He said Kittle dominated, and Lance was very accurate for the most part through team drills. So those things are, he's starting to get there, right? It's going to take time, and it's a very important attribute. It's going to take time to fix and correct. But I think Kyle throws, the biggest thing is Kyle can get any wide receiver open. Okay, if that's the case, then why not throw the rookie out there?
Exactly. That's what I mean. Like, if you can do it with subpar quarterbacks, when you got this guy,
yeah,
wow, how can you not be successful? I mean, he's going to have some growing pains for sure.
As expected, and we should expect those.
Two jumps. I mean, he's jumping from a Division II school to the NFL. I mean, there's definitely going to be a come to Jesus moment, probably a little bit.
Absolutely.
He sees how fast these guys can move, but he has that raw athleticism that he can escape and make plays. Yeah, like I said, as much as I hated losing to the Chiefs, man, the one thing about freaking Mahomes that I love is that play ain't over till it's over. He makes plays out of nothing. And like, I felt so bad. I didn't really feel bad for him in the Super Bowl. I didn't want to see Brady win either, but like, still, man, like, he just, if I can get a little bit of that with Trey Lance, guy who can extend the play and then rip a 60-yard bomb down the field to a Kittle who's wide open or an Ayuk who's wide open. Ayuk got pissed off. He was pissed off last year. There was some clips of Ayuk freaking throwing a little temper tantrum with these scrubby quarterbacks that we were putting out there last year. And I don't blame him one bit.
I mean, when you're as wide open as he was a lot and the ball can't get there in time or just get there, it's got to be frustrating.
Underthrown horribly.
Yeah, and and I think, and not to I'm not trying to toot a horn or anything like that, but I think I was like one of the first content guys to be like, hey, we have a quarterback problem. And that was the Super Bowl year. And the game that I noticed it was the Seahawks and the Niners Monday Night Football game.
Yep.
I was like,
my nephew said the same thing.
I was like, wait a second, what is wrong here? Why are this game is over if he hits Deebo Samuel on that go route. Instead, it's behind him and basically hits Shaquille Griffin in the back. Like those things, I was like, okay, we have a problem. Right. And then he showed up a couple more times and kept showing up with the underthrows. I was like, okay, we have an issue now. And then, you see the Saints game, he underthrows Emmanuel Sanders, but it's still a touchdown.
Right.
But, you score, so you live with it, right? And then the time you need him to kind of throw a little bit less, Super Bowl, he overthrows Sanders. It's like, you got to be shitting me. But yeah, I mean, my biggest thing is we got production out of CJ and Nick. You can get production out of Lance, and you can scheme this up to where they, it's just one of them things. Like you have to see what you got in this kid, and you've made a really large investment to do that. With what Jimmy gives you, what you're going to get out of him. It's just. At this point, you know who he is, you know what he is. If he's a game manager, great, but you're going to need more than that. I think Steve Young said it best that Kyle Shanahan is probably frustrated that he can't use his creativity the way he wants to with Jimmy. And he said it a couple of times. And I take Steve Young's word seriously because you got to believe he has a really good connection with Mike, Kyle's dad. And I'm sure Kyle talks to his dad and Mike probably talks to Steve and they share thoughts and they do a whole bunch of stuff. So I would assume that Kyle's getting those things that Steve Young says is coming from Mike via Kyle. You know what I mean? Like you got to think. And we heard the story recently. John Lynch said after the Fields Pro Day, they got on the plane and what's Kyle doing?
They were drawing up
plays for Trey Lance. Yep. So Kyle's creativity is going through the roof. You got to think Kyle's ready to put this kid in there. He's like, you know what? Screw it. Let's do it. And I would not be opposed to doing that at all.
Did you ever see the clip? It was one of those like Super Bowl highlight videos where Steve Young was in. They said he was in the locker room before the Super Bowl where they beat the Chargers, and him and Mike Shanahan were going over all the plays, and Shanahan was quizzing him about He would call this play, and Steve Young would tell him where to go, where the read was. And I think Shanahan looks at him, or one of them looks at each other and goes, "We're going to kill him." I think I think Kyle wants his "we're going to kill him" guy, like Mike had with Steve Young, where
Absolutely.
a guy just knows the playbook, he knows his reads, he knows his protections. Like, when I saw that clip, I was like, "That's freaking! Oh man, that's just big balls right there. That's awesome to know that like you're going to smoke a team just because you're so on it and you're in so much, you're in control of, you're just that in tune with the coach and the quarterback,
Yeah.
or like it's like symbionts. I really hope that Lance it becomes Kyle's ticket to some Lombardis, man, and like they're kind of hitched in history forever as the pick that finally got Kyle to where he had to go and got the Niners over the top. I hope that they have that connection.
Yeah.
Speaking of that team, go ahead.
No, I was just say like, you look back at Mike's tenure. He had Steve, and he had Elway. Like those were his guys, and I never bought the Mac Jones nonsense because I'm like, listen, if Mike is involved here, he's definitely looking at Fields or Lance. Like that is the way to go. He's going to want an athletic guy. Even Jay Cutler was athletic to an extent, and Kyle Orton had some movability, those things like that. So I just want to touch on that, and then, I think we saw that a lot in 2019. I mean, the Niners put 50 points on the Carolina Panthers. They were in complete control. They beat the brakes off the Browns. They, completely dominated the Packers twice. Like I think Kyle had those moments with Jimmy, but they were too far between. And then of course the playoff game. Like, how do you run as much as you did and still blow out a team? Like those type of things are crazy. I hope Trey becomes elite. I hope Trey becomes the next Steve Young. If that's who he is, then look out, NFL. And I think that's something that the NFL is worried about. Like, shit, they got Trey Lance, or they would have gotten Justin Fields. Like, I think teams would have been worried. But if they would have got Mac Jones, I'm like, oh, more of the same, when it comes to the quarterback play. So Trey should be fine. I'm here for it if he starts week 1. I would not be opposed. I'm a patient fan. For all the fans are out there like, well, you can't win a Super Bowl with a rookie. Listen, we haven't won a Super Bowl in 26 years.
That's right. I was 15 the last time he won.
We didn't win one with Jimmy, and he's a veteran. So,
right.
When it happens, it happens. It doesn't matter what year you're in. I mean, Mahomes won his second year as a starter. Like, come on. Josh Allen is third year in the starter. He's making a deep playoff run. Lamar Jackson's been in the playoffs as a young quarterback. Like, these guys they come in the league ready to play, and you have the best play caller in football as your head coach. He's gonna protect the quarterback. He's gonna try to protect the ball. Like. Well, I don't like that narrative. Oh, rookie doesn't win a Super Bowl. I don't care. The point is, we're preparing for the future, and the future is Trey Lance.
All these young quarterbacks doing so well, and you got to think the Niners. If they're healthy, they're going to have a pretty damn good defense. They had a top 10 defense last year with a lot of people hurt, and now they're going to have hopefully a lot of players back, and they're going to run the ball, and they're probably going to be damn successful at it. So there's no excuse, and there's no reason why he can't be successful starting his rookie season. Will he have some growing pains? Yes. But I think Kyle can use his maestro voodoo, whatever he does. He's so good, man.
Yeah.
I really hope he's finally found his guy. Speaking of that Super Bowl team, what do you think about the possible debut of the Throwback Reds? Hopefully, come in the next couple of days at the Niners' state of the franchise.
I think it's about damn time.
Oh,
I like the white ones. The white ones are sweet, but the red tops are really what symbolize that entire 94-95 season. The red ones.
Absolutely.
The whites are sweet. They're cool. Deion's pick 6 against Atlanta. He did that in the road game in those whites. But the reds are just next level, with the white pants. So, yeah. And it gives me reason to buy a jersey. I haven't bought one in a while. And, one of the last ones is the one right behind me. So, I try to get guys.
Player.
Yeah, I try to get guys who have been on the team for a while. And I think if they get the red throwbacks like this, it'll probably be Fred because Fred will probably be a 10, 11-year 49er. So I'll definitely go with Fred on that one.
My brother gets jerseys that are have slight errors in them from like overseas that you can't even see the issues with them. I got like they're real jerseys, but like, I don't know. I got a Bosa and a Kittle black, but yeah, I would definitely like a Fred Warner. I'd never like getting quarterback jerseys though, because I always have just ever since Kaepernick and all that.
I have the worst luck with quarterback jerseys too.
Yeah, I did cop the new Faithful to the Bay gold jacket, the old school throwback. I had to buy it. I bought my nephew one. He doesn't know about it. Hopefully he's not watching this, but I'm going to spring it on him. I want to get a picture. We got to go to a game one of these days and just have us both kind of with our backs with the Faithful to the Bay. I never had one of those growing up, one of those sweet, like old school. Actually, that was more like the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, where with the Zubaz pants, the ones that look like tiger stripes. I never had one of those jackets back in the day, so I'm just reliving my youth. I figure I got the money. What the heck? I discovered Quad Pay the other day, and I'm like, that's how I'm about to do it.
I've heard about that. Yeah. It gets you in a lot of trouble, I'm hearing.
Yeah, well, they do limit the amount of transactions I think you can do with it. So I got myself a new camera for my laptop and my jacket. Now I got to wait a little bit. So yeah, I was like, oh my God, I got to have that jacket. But yeah, man. Anything else you can think of? Anything else you want to talk about? Hit on camp battles? Anything like that?
I mean, sneaky good camp battles probably be Trey Sermon. I think Trey Sermon has a shot to be RB1. I think it would probably be ideal. I think it'd be ideal to have him as RB1, and that's not to knock Raheem Mostert. It's not a knock at all. It's actually to preserve Raheem Mostert, right? You want Raheem to give you 10 to 12 carries, maybe 15 tops, right? And you're getting 8, 9 yards out of him every time he touches the ball. And, you have Trey Sermon, who'll be your guy who gives you 200 carries for the year. Like I would definitely look at that camp battle. I think Fernando in here in the chat, Fred Warner's contract. We did touch on it, but yeah, I think Fred Warner's contract gets done before the season starts. The Niners are better off doing it now as opposed to waiting till he's literally in the middle of another all-pro season and that price goes up. We talked about it. If Bobby Wagner's getting $18 million a year, Fred is probably going to see 19.5 at the very least. And Jalen Smith, I think, with the contract was $43 million guaranteed. So Fred is probably going to see that 50, 52, 55 mark in guaranteed dollars. I think that's kind of where he'll be at. But I think the biggest thing, camp battles, probably Trey and Raheem for RB1. Ambry Thomas versus Emmanuel Mosley. I think that's going to be a legit competition.
That would be good.
And I want to figure out what the Niners do with strong safety. Is Tart going to be healthy for the year? Are we going to sign Tony Jefferson? What's going to happen with Tavarius Moore? I think the safety position is very intriguing. Like, what do you do with all these guys? You got like a million safeties, and you still haven't figured out your strong safety spot, which is another spot that I thought they should have took in the draft. I was all about Andre Cisco out of Syracuse. They didn't address it there. They went with Hufanga. Hufanga, to me, yeah, I get it. He's a 5th-round pick, and the narrative around the Niners is they hit on 5th-rounders. I don't know Hufanga is going to be some type of Troy Polamalu type of player because that's not who he was in college. I think, he's a 4.7 guy. He's probably going to be a career special team player. So you're still going to be looking for a strong safety. And this is kind of where goes back to what we talked about earlier. Do you send those draft picks? For Julio when you have to kind of figure out what you can do in strong safety, guard, and corner, and everything else next year? So it's pretty interesting.
When you bring those points up, and sometimes I have to have. That's why I like to bounce ideas off other people. It makes less and less sense to trade for Julio. It just does.
It does, right?
But
it would be sweet. It would be so sweet.
Oh, it would be so great. Like, I'd be so happy. But then I would be like, yeah, but he's old. Like I would. I mean, he's not old. I'm old. I'm 41. But like in NFL terms, he's up there as far as where your career starts to go decline. But yeah, man, we're in that like we're in that dead part of the off season right now before things get going. I heard on your channel the other day, you said something about the Niners are, are we 98 days away now or 99 days away from the
Well,
start of the season?
today is 99 days, but in an hour and a half it'll be 98. So yeah, I'm in Central Time, so
Yeah. Yeah, I'm East Coast, so it's almost 11:30. Yeah.
yeah, and I
I'm
think outside of the Julio thing, I still have the desire for Odell Beckham. Like I would still welcome him on the team. There's guys that are that might become available. Maybe Odell becomes available. Maybe the Browns cut him. Like if I'm Kyle Shanahan, I'm running to Odell's house. Like let's go.
Yeah, if you don't have to give up assets and you get a guy that caliber, and you don't have to really depend on him, he's more of like an extra piece instead of the piece.
Yeah.
Where you already have pieces around him, then hell yeah,
and
sign me up.
Why I keep bringing up Sterling Shepard is, his number after, like if they were to trade him after June 1, his dead cap hit is only $2 million for the Giants. The Giants just drafted Tony. They drafted the other kid last year. They have another kid, I forget his name. And then they added Kenny Galladay. So they have 3 solid wide receivers. To me, the odd man out here is Sterling Shepard. Like, if he's available for a mid-round pick, I'd do that well before I send a 2 for Julio. And Sterling Shepard's only 28.
Yeah, he's got
plenty of tread on the. Yeah, he got plenty of tread on the tires. Like there is a world where I think this is very possible, and he fits the Niners cap space. He's only $9 million against the cap, as opposed to the 15.3 for Julio.
Right.
Like to me that is the move that makes the most sense. Like if Sterling Shepard becomes available, Kyle, pick up the phone. John, make the call. Like, hey, what's it going to take for Sterling Shepard? And I think the Giants would be willing to take a mid-round pick to get that off their books.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would send you the 4th. I would go pick him up for you. You know what I mean? Like that's just, to me, that makes a lot of sense. But yeah. Real quick, one of the guys in the chat, 49ers Ultimate Report. Yeah, just hit me on Twitter at Javier Vega _ and we can get on. We can do a show together, buddy. But yeah, this offseason gonna be fun. To me, this is more time for me to grind tape. I'm gonna definitely dig into some of this defensive stuff because DeMeco Ryans, he said he's gonna be a little more aggressive, and I fully expect him to blitz a lot more.
I'm liking that.
A lot more man coverage. I want to see Trey,
which I also like.
I want to see Fred at least get 5-6 sacks this year. Like I think that is a realistic number for Fred.
I'm gonna say though, man, Robert Saleh, he changed my mind on him last year. I wasn't overly impressed with him for a while, and I used to tweet it all the time and talk about it in my videos. What he was able to do with that team, with the amount of guys out on injury, props to him. I hope he's super successful in New York. I really do.
Absolutely. He's just a good
I was
human.
really surprised about Ronald Blair, man. I thought we signed him. I was confused.
I don't think he passed the physical, unfortunately. That's what happened.
That's why. Okay, so I did see something.
We signed him, and he didn't. Yeah, I don't think he passed the physical. So, yeah.
Oh my God, I'm getting all these. Thank you, 49ers Ultimate Report. I appreciate it. Yeah, he said he doesn't have a Twitter and Instagram.
I'll hit you up on YouTube. No worries.
I gotta say, man, you've been a pleasure. Most of 49ers content creators, YouTube, Twit, all you guys are like super supportive. Everybody's really supportive of each other. It's like a pretty healthy fan base, I must say. People coming on each other's channels, smaller channels like mine. You got guys like John Chapman and Grant Cohn, of course.
Yeah.
But I just want to say thanks, man. You're one of the OGs. I can't believe I've been honored and privileged to have some of the best to do it on my channel, because I feel like in order to get better, I need to pick the mind of the people that know more than me, and I'm okay with that, and I'm okay to admit that. So I appreciate you coming on. I would love to do this again in the future, maybe towards the start of the season, training camp.
Absolutely.
If that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Anytime, man. Like I'm always down to talk Niners. My wife does not like sports. She doesn't understand them. And I have a
I had a
6-year-old son who
girlfriend
does
like that back in the day.
I have a 6-year-old son who does he's not there yet, and I got a 2.5-year-old son. He's not there yet. So it's just literally me, the microphone, and whoever else I can get a chance to talk to. So I appreciate you having me on. I don't take myself too seriously. You can't when you do this kind of stuff. You got to just be just as humble as everybody else. And I'm always down to help anybody out there who never needs any help getting into this stuff. So I appreciate you having me on, man. I'm sorry it took so long. Stupid weather in
No, it's all
Texas.
right.
It's literally pouring rain right now. And my TV stuff, my wife texted me the cable's out because of satellite and stuff. Texas rain right now is ridiculous.
I have DirecTV too, man. It's ridiculous. It's good thing during the football season, I usually don't get too much of this. So I'm just looking forward to having more to talk about once we get closer to training camp and the start of the year. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on, man. I would love to do it again. Everybody, I saw your tweet the other day about trying to get your channel, Fourth and Goal Podcast YouTube channel, up to 1,000 subs. Guys, give him some love. Go to his channel, subscribe. They're fantastic. Like I said, Javi knows what he's talking about. Give him a listen. I think where can you find your podcast?
Everywhere. Apple, Spotify, Pocket Cast, wherever podcasts are found. Just Fourth and Gold Podcast. You'll see it. I just recently changed to co-host, so it's me and my buddy Fernando now. But we're still going to keep kicking out content. I'm slowly working on something with Frank Gore. Hopefully,
that'd be awesome.
Because I had Joe Staley. Joe's trying to work it out for me. Hopefully that happens. Frank, if you're listening, I love you, man. Like, please.
One of the OGs, one of the best
yeah,
ever.
Bro. If I get Frank, I'm just gonna retire. That's it. I'm over with. That's it. Like that'll be the pinnacle for me. But yeah, we did a whole series. We went to the Senior Bowl this past January. I want to say 7 or 8 guys, and they all got drafted or signed by a team, which was pretty awesome. Austin Watkins was one of our guys on the show. He's now a Niner. I talk to him on a regular basis now. He's telling me, man, camp is dope. It's great. He's got stuff to work on. It's pretty cool, man. The more you get into this stuff, the more you learn about people. People give you an opportunity. They start reaching out to you. So for everyone out there who just wants to check out and support us, we appreciate all the support too.
Definitely. Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it, Javi.
Not a problem. Thank you.
All right, brother. Take care. Everybody have a good night, and I'll see you on the flip side. See ya.